Hello and happy Good Friday. Happy Easter weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in live with me, Carolina Castillo, and our co-host Yvette Harris from Harris PR, who rocks. It's her third show. So I'm just happy she's here with us. Woo!
I'm excited.
And of course, our amazing guest, Marj Weber. Thank you so much for joining us. A woman who has broken many, many, many glass ceilings. And we are just proud to have her. She is prepares and directs small business owners in their search for capital for both startups and growing businesses. She likes to instruct them on the best resources and how to maximize their potential. She just, money matters, and she finds money for businesses, which we all need right now in 2021, right? Especially like after that 2020. So how's everyone feeling today?
Great.
Amazing.
How are you all feeling?
Good. It's a beautiful
Well, I have
day
to tell
here.
you, I'm feeling
You're good?
Yes, I got my vaccine today, Pfizer vaccine at UHealth, and I'm really grateful on this Good Friday, very reflective, and just, blessed to be here with you both.
Thank you.
Sounds good. And I'm excited.
I know that this month is a special month.
Yes, it's National Financial Literacy Month. So I was ecstatic that you were going to be our guest today, because I know that this is such an important issue for all businesses, but especially women-owned businesses, businesses that have been hit really hard during COVID-19. So I would love to hear from you in terms of how you've been navigating this kind of new with some of your clients and the ways that you're reaching out to them, and some of the things that they might be experiencing that some of our viewers can definitely relate to.
Well, I think we have to talk about today and not yesterday, because our local economy is different today. And I've had a coterie of clients that will come back to me, and when they hear about PPP financing or the EIDL financing, both programs that are offered by the SBA, they want to know more about it. Will it work for them? And I like to talk to them about the short term and the long term, because I think that we have to look at both when we're talking about the issues that small businesses are facing right now. Some of them are immediate because they have payroll problems, but some of them sometimes it means that they have to revamp their thinking, revamp how they approach their clients, what type of clients or customers they want to access. So they have to plan for it. It means rethinking. It means change. That's so difficult for people. Change is hard to handle. But fortunately, people that are entrepreneurs usually can adapt to change more readily than others. Mm-hmm. So if they've got that entrepreneurial spirit, they have to think forward. How do I have to change my business to look forward to the tomorrows? But we all know that we can see people don't go into work 5 days a week. A lot of the access is done online. So how do we adapt our businesses or their businesses to this new economy? Have you prepared a mailing list for your business? Do all of you have it? I'm asking you.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So, because I work from home.
Yes. I didn't know you were asking that.
Yeah, no,
you were asking them.
I was like, who's she talking to?
Yes.
For me,
that's so awesome. So Marj, the great part of this show, which I love, by the way, is that our viewers get to ask you questions live on the comments. And so, actually, I think that's a perfect question for our viewers and for us.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I was already.
How have you been handling?
I have an assistant who helps me, and we've put together MailChimp. I've taken all my contacts that I wanted to keep and put them into a MailChimp, and I now can access my client base of about 300 people that I've worked with over the past couple of years through MailChimp. But how do you keep them interested? And why should they look at their emails from me? What do I have to offer them? So I want to make certain that the information is current and meaningful to them. I personally have done some videos on Zoom, some short videos, just to get their interest, to see that whether they're interested in the things that I have to offer. They're not necessarily dollars. I want to give them knowledge. I want them to see how the market has changed, be aware of it, and make the changes appropriate for their business. One of the things that I find interesting, challenging, are the leases. Many people have signed long-term leases at rates that may be higher than the current market.
Wow. How
do you go back to your landlord and ask for revisions in your lease so that you can stay alive during these difficult times when the drawer isn't as full as it used to be? Mm-hmm. It can be done. It has to be done properly. You have to understand your lease. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand all the terms of their lease. Landlords don't want to lose tenants. But that's one of the biggest problems that small businesses have right now if they're paying rent and they can't afford it.
Right.
They think about, close the door. No, sometimes you can get deferment on leases. A landlord will say, okay, we'll put it to the end of your lease. We'll go back and reduce your rent. Because he doesn't want to lose you as a tenant.
So what I'm hearing from you is basically just, to even one of the first things to do is just to try and have that conversation with your landlord. Don't necessarily think that might not be an option for you. But try and have that conversation, right?
Absolutely right. And sometimes what they will do, and I've seen it done, I've done it with my clients, is we've reduced the rent in 2020 or sometimes 2021, and we've deferred that increase to the end of the lease. That may be 26, 23, 24, 25, because sometimes we have long-term leases. Mm-hmm. So as long as he knows he's going to get paid back eventually in the future, and we all hope that the future will stabilize, listen, he doesn't want to have to fix up the space again, re-rent it, and have it empty for a few months. So talk to him.
Right.
And who has been your most challenging client, do you think?
I'm thinking my most challenging client, those who don't want to.
Who has been your most challenging client?
Okay, probably those who are unwilling to come to me. I have to reach out to them. A lot of people don't want to say the negative. They don't want to admit that it's hurting. Right. And it's not their fault. So the most challenging ones are the ones who don't speak out. The ones, I would say the most challenging ones, though, in general, are the ones with bad credit. They've used their credit card to pay their bills. And it's impacted their credit scores on a personal level, not even on a business level. And we still look at personal credit. And if your personal credit is not acceptable, very difficult and very expensive to get capital. So keeping your credit score good is so...
And Marj, we were talking...
I'm sorry?
So crucial. And we were talking in the back end about digital marketing and how some people have been left behind with digital marketing. And they've had a really big challenge, right? Because now it's all about Zoom. It's all about digital and computers. And we're not really, it's not as easy to do the face-to-face meetings that you would normally do. Could you tell us more about that and how you were able to transition your company and your clients?
Well, I'm still doing it because I'm learning every day. You learn that Zoom is there for you, and at least you can look at somebody and see their body language when you're talking to them, and you can get some understanding of who they are. But Zoom is difficult unless it's a one-to-one, or like this conversation, there's three of us on the conversation. when you have big Zoom meetings, it's very, very difficult to control them. So you have to learn how to use Zoom properly. And it takes time. I didn't know to begin with. I thought I could have little meetings with 3 or 4 people, but they interfere with the conversation. You don't get out of it what you're looking for, and people get turned off. And if you keep the Zoom meetings too long, people get bored too, particularly if you're not really teaching them and what the conversation is not relevant to what they're looking for.
Right.
So I find that Zoom meetings can be good, but they better have the right audience on that Zoom meeting. I like one-on-one Zoom meetings myself. And, that I can talk on a personal level, that I don't have to worry about being careful about revealing information that is too relevant to one business and some other business shouldn't hear it. So I do use Zoom frequently. I even go to meetings. Once I like to meet a client face to face, and it means having a cup of coffee outside, we do it. If it means going to their office and meeting their personnel, I do it. And the rest of it can be on a phone or on a Zoom call. But it's not easy. I told you the other day that what I did is I built a tent in my backyard. I built a tent with fans and with lights so that I can sit out there and have a cup of coffee or tea and have a meeting out there in my backyard.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the most. I think that's been one of the most challenging things that small businesses have had to kind of navigate. And if you don't have your office space, sometimes you went to Starbucks, or you would find these creative spaces to work from, or you went to your client's office. And now with everybody working from home for a year, I think everybody is itching to kind of go back to that creative space and interaction with everybody. So I have a question for you. If you're a small business that experienced some challenges during 2020 and you're in 2021 now, and you're kind of feeling stuck, you're kind of like, okay, where do I begin to grow again? What do I need to do? Do you have any tips that you can offer somebody that's feeling stuck in terms of maybe the direction of their company, their financials, and they're just needing to get unstuck?
Well, you've got to define your market. It may be a slightly different market than it was a year or two ago. Mm-hmm. Your client base may be different. You may have to broaden out to a larger market, which means you may have to do some online marketing. And a lot of people offer these online services these days, but you want to make certain that you're reaching the right audience. I'm not impressed when someone comes to me and says, I've got 5,000 people on my Facebook. It doesn't mean anything. How many customers do you have? I always look at the customers and whether they pay their bills. Mm-hmm. So how do you reach your market? I can't tell you if it's a dentist, he's not going to do it online. You still have to have people come in to see him. But you've got to think about changing your market. Sometimes you have to change your products too, or your services. You've got to expand them. Certainly if you're in the service business and you've been doing advertising, your advertising is going to be more online marketing rather than advertising. So you've got to think, and you've got to think short term, and you've got to think long term. And how can I get from short term to long term and keep my expenses down? And that's why I went back and I referenced the lease, because your biggest expense, besides your personnel, is your lease.
Wow.
And so you have to address both of them, and you certainly don't want to fire people if you don't have to. Mm-hmm. And that's why the PPP program has been so wonderful. I don't know, are you familiar with it?
Oh, absolutely. I am. Yes.
Have any of you had PPP loans?
I have. I did the first round. Yes.
Yeah. You did the first round. Second round's a little bit tougher because they want you to have a W-2, and pay unemployment and have 940s and so forth. But if you do, they're there for you, and you can get funding, and it is forgivable. But, the first time around was pretty difficult too. And not all banks or not all lenders are taking new customers for PPP. They want to only offer it to their existing customer base.
So I want to ask the question: what do minority companies? What do minority companies have to do to get more help if they don't have their paperwork together? How can you help minority companies?
Okay, and
like women-owned companies, Latino-owned companies.
There is nothing I like better than to help somebody who's willing to listen. And I think women will listen a little bit more than men will. I think women will be more responsive. They don't have to be geniuses, and we weren't born to be, business executives, but we've learned to be. So let's take advantage of the fact that there are others out there that are willing to help us. And what bothers me, in all honesty, is that there are a lot of people that are offering advice, but they're not really qualified. They've got limited advice. The fact that I've been around doing this so many years gives me a lot of experience, and I see the weaknesses, and perhaps I know a little bit more about what to push and what to pull. I find that many people don't set up their books properly for their businesses. And so when I ask them for a particular item on their QuickBooks, they can't even provide them. They don't understand their own QuickBooks. Mm-hmm. And I think that they should. After all, the books don't belong to the CPA, they belong to the company. They belong to the owner of the company, and they better understand them. And once you understand your QuickBooks and set up a proper QuickBook file for your business, each one's a little bit different. Some are very simple because you may only make, if you're a real estate broker, you only make 2-3 fees a month. If you're in the construction business, it may be in and out, in and out, in and out, and you have to be prepared to set up your books appropriately. And I think that that's so critical. And then if you have a set of books and I come to you and I say, I don't like them, you have to change them, that's a horrible experience. But part of our problem here with helping, I'll tell you what, one of the problems that bothers me, many accountants, many CPAs who file your tax returns are looking to save you money because they'll write off as much as they can so that you don't show any profit at the end of a year. Your business didn't make any money. It may be fine for taxes, but it's not great when you're trying to grow your business when you show that you have no profit. Right. Sometimes it's better to show some profit. And how do you do that and not get hurt? I'll give you a tip. And this is something I've told a few of my customers. If you want to make a distribution because you've made money at the end of the year and you're willing to write a check to yourself and show it as a distribution to the owners, do it in January. Don't do it in December.
That's a good tip. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Not paying taxes on it. It shows as revenue to your company. And you may pay a little taxes on it, but the taxes aren't so bad when you're paying corporate taxes. And then you'll distribute it in January.
So I know sometimes we focus on the dues, and I know that you have some really gems in terms of the don'ts. Can you share with us some of these?
Would you like me to talk about an existing business or a new business?
A startup business, maybe an existing startup business. How about a startup one?
Okay, a startup one. Too many startup businesses mingle their personal and their business revenue or their accounts. They'll borrow personally to pay some bills personally because they don't want to show a loss in their business or they don't have the money. They've got to set up their books properly so that business expenses are truly business expenses, even if they're losses. But make certain that if you use your own money to start your business, then you show it as a loan to your business. It's a debt that your business has and an obligation to pay back to you. Right. But it's getting a good accountant to set up a set of books that really will work for you and make the IRS happy at the same time. But so many people commingle. They'll use personal loans because they've got personal credit, and they'll borrow money personally. and put it in their business. I'm
So no
saying
commingling. Okay, that's a good one.
no commingling, personal and business. I'm just trying to think of something. Oh, I said to you before, credit scores. You know what a good credit score is? A personal credit score? 680 is what we look for.
Oh,
680.
Anything
I
over
was going to
6.
say 720, so that's good.
Oh no, 720 is high. I won't even look at you anymore. And what I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. If you're shopping, whether it's shopping for a loan or shopping for a car as an individual, never let people pull your credit. Take a copy of your credit report with you. And show it to them, your 720 score. Show them your 720 score and say, listen, I'm looking for a loan. I'll let you pull my credit if I'm an acceptable borrower at a later point. But here's my credit score. Do you like me or do you don't? Are you not ready? They may not like you because they may not like the nature of your business. You may be fine, but maybe they don't like what you're doing. So don't let people pull your credit score. You're ready. They're ready to make a loan.
So I have a question. What advice would you give millennials, Gen Z versus, 60, 70, and 80-year-olds? Because I know there are two different avenues and two different advices that you would give. What advice would you give both?
Well, okay, when I think of it, very often I'm asked to go into the high schools and talk to the senior classes of a high school and give them some idea about financial literacy. I really can't talk about financial literacy for business, but financial literacy for everybody is important. So you start thinking about how much I own and how much I owe. What can I afford to pay if I go and I buy a car? And a car is no different than a business. How much money do I have coming in to pay my bills? I've got to make certain that if I'm going to start a business, that I have enough money to not only pay my bills for the first month, but for the second month, the third month, and the fourth month. Because maybe the income won't come in for a few months. Not everybody gets paid on the spot for what they do. So that you've got to have enough working capital to move forward. Because it's a disaster if you don't plan for that first year, month by month by month. Everybody, all your operating expenses and in your inventory. That means that you have to prepare very detailed cash flow projections.
So do you think that COVID put that spotlight on this because there were a lot of companies, individuals, the entire world that really, they were not prepared for not making money for the, for the year 2020? That was a valuable lesson for everyone, I believe, no matter who you are. Just
they didn't plan for it.
Right, yeah.
But what you did, you asked me a question. You were talking about the young millennials. One of the pleasures I've gotten out of this doing what I'm doing for the past several years is getting money for startups. I don't make a lot of money doing it. These are small loans, but if you can take somebody who had a job and now wants to start making candles, I'm not talking about 2020, but let's go back to 2018 or 2019, making cookies, making candles, doing some small business like that. They want to go off on their own. There is money for them to start a business as long as they have good personal credit. And I work with them and I create cash flow projections for them. There are many, many businesses that I've started that were small like that. And I can get them up to $150,000 of working capital.
Wow.
And for working capital and inventory, if they have good personal credit, and we do cash flow projections to show that at the end of that first year, if they're sensible about it, they're going to be okay. And I have done that hundreds of times with lenders, not banks. Banks will not do it. Banks don't want startups. So don't waste your time by going to a bank for a startup.
So you've mentioned personal credit quite a bit.
Yes.
For our viewers, how does one start to really work on their credit and, nurture that so that when they get to wanting to buy a car, wanting to start their own business, that they are at that mark where they need to be to come and see you?
Well, the first thing you do is, most of these kids at the age of 17 or 18, when they go into college, somebody offers them a credit card, and they're thrilled to death because they'll give them some, lending power with that credit card. I don't know whether it's $1,000 or $500, but they give them something. You can't borrow money if you can't pay it back. So you don't think about borrowing it, using that credit line that they give you, because they're enticing you into very expensive debt on a credit card. It's somewhere in the teens. You know that. They may give you a break for the first year because they want to entice you into it. But if you can't pay it back, the rates go very, very high, 14, 15, 16%. I hate it.
So college students should not be taking out credit cards because they can't
use credit cards, but pay your bills at the end of every month.
Right.
And if you pay your bill at the end of every month, your credit will be established after maybe 6 months or a year. I don't know how long it is. I have a very good credit company that I work with, and I bring her into my seminars, and she helps me teach them about what the current policies are with the different financial agencies, because they're constantly changing.
Mm-hmm. And what if you don't have any credit, Marj? Because a lot of people say, oh, I wasn't able to get that loan because I don't have any credit. Not only do I not
get a credit card,
I don't have any credit.
No, I don't care. Just get a credit card. I don't care. You don't have a mortgage, you don't have an auto loan, but you got a credit card. It starts your credit going. Pay your bills every month. You may have a $50 charge. Pay it off.
Mm-hmm.
Pay it off. You'll establish credit. And once you establish credit, they'll start looking at you. And, once they do, they'll want to sell you a car. But I don't want you to buy a car unless you can afford to make the payments. Because if you don't make the payments, you're going to lose the car and you'll lose your credit as well. So you'll never get into business.
So, Marj, one last question, and thank you for that advice. What projects are you working on now, currently, that you'd like for us to know about?
Well, I don't like to disclose clients, okay? I'm very careful about that because everything is confidential. But I can tell you, I have to handpick my clients. If I'm going to do major deals right now, I have to handpick the business. As I mentioned to you, I was working with a dentist, and a dentist will come back to business. Everybody will go eventually have their teeth cleaned, and
I hope so,
and so forth. So we'll be fine. One that I'm working on right now, and I can say it's been a success because I just received a commitment today, is a veterinary. Tell me who doesn't spend money on their pets? Any of you have pets?
Yes.
I have 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Spend a lot of money on them.
Especially when they get sick.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. You would like to make some of the money. A good veterinarian makes good money.
Mm-hmm.
And so the banks aren't concerned about the continuity of income in that type of business. I've done some restaurants, believe it or not, but they have outdoor space or they do home delivery. So you have to think about each individual business and how it can adapt to the situation today.
Right.
And they are doing it. I mean, some businesses, I will say, wait another 6 months. But I don't know. It's case to case. I just want to give you one other clue when it comes to credit, if we have time, because I think credit is so important. So many people run up debt on their credit cards, and it exceeds the acceptable amount of credit. Credit on each individual credit card should not exceed 33% of the line that they make available to you. So if they make $1,000 line available to you, don't use more than $333 of it. Split it up into different credit cards, but don't go all deep into one credit line because that will impact your credit. People don't realize it.
Good to know.
Yeah. But I'm happy to
love
help.
it. I love having you.
Even the knowledgeable people learn something because you haven't had the experience. If you haven't had a credit issue, you don't know how important it is to balance out the debt that you have. But
Yes.
oh, by the way, when I talk about startup dollars, I'm not talking about expensive money. I don't like costly money. I like to use the SBA because the cost of money through the SBA is reasonable. It's not, and one thing I will just say, if you want a last minute clue, don't use short-term debt like credit cards to buy long-term assets like a washing machine. You're going to keep the washing machine for several years. You don't want to pay it off several years at a high rate.
Right.
A credit card is a high rate loan.
So you're so passionate about this. If you weren't in this industry, what do you think you might be doing?
I'm an educator, I think, because remember, I do get loans for people, and my funds, I make money out of getting loans, but I like educating people. At this stage of my life, that's where I'd like to do more in financial literacy. I put together financial literacy for business, for biz, I call it, because nobody says business anymore. Financial literacy, numeric for biz, just to educate people.
Right.
And I think it's missing. I used to run SCORE, SCORE Miami-Dade. And I had a big group of
Yes, I remember.
You do remember. And I had a lot of people working for me, but I wanted to make certain that they were knowledgeable and they weren't selling their services. They were providing education. And so many times you get people who you think are educating you, but they're really selling a service or a product.
Yeah.
We have to be very, very careful. There aren't too many people in this community that can do that. So I would continue to educate at this point in my life. That's my great pleasure.
Well, we appreciate you. You have definitely educated us today. Right, Carolina?
Anytime.
Yes, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
My computer's going a little nutty. Do you see it or do you see me? Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time. I'm so happy that Marty Mang introduced us a long time ago. I think it was 2018 when I was the president of Women's Chamber. So thank you for your time. And for the viewers, happy Easter weekend. And we'll see you next Friday when we have Yudeika Yuki Tavera, who's the Associate Director and Curator at Evelyn Amy's Fine Arts. She's an art dealer and consultant specializing in post-war, modern, and contemporary art. So we'll see you next Friday. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you all for inviting me.
Thank you. Happy Friday.